So first of all, okay, give me a second. Okay, so first of all, I feel really really privileged. First, to introduce Eve. Eve is a force in the Jewish women's world, and especially in Kiruv. I know the sacrifices that Eve has made, her and her family, going from really country city to really mamish changed Jews' lives. It's really remarkable. And I'm also privileged to know Eve's tremendous mother. So I feel really privileged. Such an incredible, beautiful family. And I love Eve. The little bit that I've gotten to know Eve, I just absolutely love and adore her. So I want to introduce her. Before that, I just want to mention Thursday, I'll say it afterwards. Eve Levy is currently the co-director of L'chaim Center for Inspired Living on the North Shore of Chicago. L'chaim Center, chaimcenter.org, is an organization that provides meaningful experiences and content for Jews of all backgrounds. The Outreach Center builds community leaders and empowerment through Torah learning, powerful trips, retreats, and real personal connection. Eve's signature trip is her Poland-Israel journey, but she has also led women's trips to Thailand and Morocco, and of course to Israel. Eve's passion has always been for the Jewish people since she was a young girl living in Calgary, Alberta, when her family was turned on to Judaism by an individual after many decades of little Jewish observance. All four of Eve's grandparents were Holocaust survivors, which has given her direction in her life to make sure that Jewish people don't just survive, but thrive. Eve's gift is being able to connect to people from all backgrounds and help them see their greatness. She has been involved with many outstanding organizations and initiatives in the Jewish world, such as CORE, Momentum, Mikvah USA. When she is not teaching, she is taking a Zumba class, making challah, or having coffee with a friend. So we are so privileged. Thank you, Eve. This was so amazing of you, and I'm so looking forward to hearing your beautiful words.
Thank you. Do you guys hear me? Naomi, you hear me okay? Okay. Hi, everyone. Chodesh Tov. I think this is, I don't know, maybe my third or fourth time coming on to this group to present something. But every time I open my mouth to speak after the davening, I'm totally shaken. There's so much power in this Zoom room right now that my voice is always, I start off speaking and my voice is shaking because I feel so much power with the Jewish women that are davening over here. And Naomi, that was so beautiful, the way that you just, I say Nishmat every day, but to say it with so much power and so much, you hear the brokenness and you hear the joy and you hear just all the emotions of Jewish women around the world. Hashem should listen to our tefillos, and we should have Yeshua's Benachamos and Klal Yisrael very, very soon. Okay, so the title that we gave to this talk is "Are You My Mother?" And I was thinking, what should we talk about? I'm speaking to another group of young women from Olami, which is young professionals, later on in the week. And I'm so inspired by all the parshios that we're going through right now that I thought we'd speak about the imahos. So I'm borrowing the title, and it just so happens that some of you might know my mother, who just made Aliyah this year. Probably part of her inspiration for making Aliyah was this group, I would say for sure, because it really got her through COVID, being together with you guys and learning and growing and watching her Aliyah process has been a huge inspiration in my life. So I'm going to start with a quote. This quote is something that I've had on my refrigerator. I've shared this quote with hundreds of women over probably 15 years since I found it. And if you're interested, I'm happy to type it up and send it to you also. And it's just so beautiful. This quote, it's from a book written by Rivka Zakutinsky. The book is Finding the Woman of Valor. And here's the quote. "There is nothing ordinary about a Jewish woman. No matter who she is, regardless of her particular circumstances, she is a potential wellspring of goodness and faith, reflecting all that was given at Sinai. Single, married, divorced, widowed, mothering, praying, working, learning, teaching, building, healing, growing, waiting. Every daughter of Israel is a precious resource of creative, unique energy. Each Jewish woman also represents one more possibility to reach the kind of merit needed to illuminate and transform our planet. I give that to everyone. When I come on a bus on a momentum trip, I literally print cards and I hand it out to the women. I say, hold on to this, because everyone finds themselves in this quote. We're all somewhere in it, whether we're on this side or the other side, or, we're all waiting for something to happen and to transform in our lives. And there's such a power in the waiting as Jewish women, in the yearning, in the hoping, in the faith that things will be better. And I heard that in your voice, Naomi, when you sang the tefillah that you just so beautifully sang. The pain and the joy, the hope and the fear, that we're broken and we're whole. We're so complex. And when we look into the parshios, these weeks are so full and so gorgeous with lessons and with stories. We see the avos and the imahos, and none of them have it easy. It's so complicated. Every single one is coming from patterns and households that are complex and I would say broken, right? There's nothing simple about them. This week, yesterday, we spoke about Rivka coming from her complex situation, also tricksters, thieves. Abraham, we know, coming from his father Terah, the idol worshiper. I mean, just focusing on the women for a minute. Sarah, she's waiting for 90 years for this, the big day that she could become the mother of Klal Yisrael. And she never gets to experience the nachas that she waits for. When her son passes away, she doesn't even see a grandchild. The waiting, the yearning, the hoping, the pain. But what would it look like if, let's say, Moshe Rabbeinu grew up in a regular, normal house, around the block? Like, Klal Yisrael would look different. He had to go through the hardships. He had to overcome. He had to be raised by, the Hitler of that time to become the Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not because of these things. It's despite the shaky upbringings. It's because of it. It's because of all the hardship, the pain and the turbulence and the determination to overcome. I think that's what makes us who we are. So I'm going to focus on just the women for now. Are you my mother? I will happily send that quote. And the tikkun that needs to come because of us and because of our hardships. So let me focus a little bit on Sarah and on Rivka, because I don't think we have so much time. And maybe I'll end with a little bit of Rachel and Leah. So, and I have two books in front of me, and I highly recommend both of them. One of them is called The Sisterhood of Copper Mirrors by Leah Saul, who lives in Israel. And the other one is Rabbitin Yemima Mizrahi. Okay, Yemima Mizrahi speaks. And every week I give a Parsha shir, and I come to the class, I open a few books, and I'm always, no matter how many times I've learned this and I've read it, there's always gems that just talk to me at different times. So here's one that spoke to me. And if anyone in this room, in the Zoom, is a mother, you might relate to this. So the waiting for decades that Sarah, went through, waiting to see Nafis and yearning for a child. And yet everything is so complicated. And then again, 20 years of infertility with Rivka, waiting. And then her child is born and her child comes out red. And there's complexity. Even her pregnancy was so turbulent. What's going on inside of me? And Rebbetzin Yemima says that true blessing does not come easy. It comes through toil. If you receive something bit kalut, easily, she says that's a klala, that's a curse. Bracha comes through we have to go through that channel, like we're being born, right? We go through that birthing canal and we're squeezed, and that's healthy for the baby. That's when all the mucus and that's when everything comes into work. When we go through the squeezing, right? We have to go through the tsar, we have to go through the mitzrayim, we have to come out the other side. So Rivka says these words in yesterday's Torah portion. She says, Lama ze anochi? Why am I like this? Like, why? Why me, right? We know that very often in our minds, we say lama, right? I'm sure you've heard the lama for why could also be elevated to lima, for what purpose, to what end, what do I need to do with this? What does this need to teach me? So, but the question that we sometimes say when we're dealing with our own situation with our children is, where did I go wrong? What could I have done differently? How did I make a mistake like this? How did this child come out this way, right? It's there's guilt, there's shame, there's confusion, right? And in yesterday's Torah portion, we see that Yitzchak, it says, V'yicharad Yitzchak charada gedola. He when he realizes who his child is, his child walks into the room and he thought he was like pious or, and he sees like Gehenna open up in front of him. And he trembles, he has this anxiety, this fear. It's what we all go through as parents. Like, where did I go wrong? Why is this child not going along the path that I planned for him or for her? And we know that children could bring tsar. They could bring tsar gidol banim, the pain of raising children. And yet, Yitzchak still is able to give Esav a blessing, because we always have a blessing. Because even in the pain, it's a blessing. Our children are a blessing. They're a blessing for us. Even in the tsar, even in the discomfort, there's blessing. There's miracles that are happening. And we know as parents that we never, ever, ever give up. We never give up on our child. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Rivka for a second. I read something very interesting. This I found in the Sisterhood of Copper Mirrors. I don't know if you've ever read this midrash, but this was certainly something that you don't learn this one in Sunday school. So Rivka's circumstances in life, she was raised in also a complex environment with people that were self-serving around her. And the midrash says that her family, right, they hosted Eliezer, but Betuel, her father, tried to poison Eliezer's food so that he could steal the wealth Eliezer brought. The angel Gabriel came and switched the plates of food, and Betuel, Rivka's father, was poisoned instead. And maybe this is why we don't see or hear of him again in the story. But why would Betuel deserve to be poisoned? And the midrash explains that Betuel, like you could even look at his word, the shoresh of his word, Betuel, from the word Betula, which is a virgin. He was named the god of virgins. And he was a terrible man. He was in the position of kingship, and he took virgins for himself before their wedding night. In fact, the people of the region wanted Betuel to take Rivka before her wedding night, since he took all of their daughters. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Like, what terrible times that these people are living in. And even this family that Abraham clearly chose, this family, there was some redeeming trait to take a bride from this family. And even within all the sickness and the depravity, Rivka emerges as a woman of kindness, right? Each one of the imahos have a midah, a character trait. Some have many, right? With Sarah, it's definitely modesty. But we learn a lot from Sarah, nobility, her royalty. She was a princess. Sarai is my princess. She was an educator. She was a leader. She had such a feminine way of leadership, so much beauty. Rivka, we know that her main trait is this kindness. That's what Eliezer saw first within her, and that's why he knew it was a sign. He knew that she was the right one. And there's this beautiful chain of passing things on from one generation to the next. In Sarah's life, there were miracles in her tent. There was always a cloud that represented Hashem Shekhinah was present, the cloud that hovered over Sarah's tent. There was the candles that stayed lit from Erev Shabbat to Erev Shabbat, and the blessing in her dough, that her challah always stayed fresh, blessing that always carried with her. But after Sarah passed away, those three miracles left. And when Rivka is brought to her tent, to Sarah's tent, the three miracles reappear. And I feel as a Jewish woman that every time I light my Shabbos candles, every time I make challah, make the bracha, and be in this auspicious moment of prayer and connection, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, all the imahos, they're right there. They're standing over our shoulder. They're watching us, and they're saying, thank you for carrying on our legacy. We're part of them. There's been no break for all these thousands of years. The Jewish women have always been doing this, and they're right there with us. We're literally carrying on their legacy. Just like Sarah passed it on to Rivka, so too, all of us, we're keeping it going strong. So I'd like to end with a little story, maybe one or two stories. So when Bnei Israel were being taken out to Galus, and we know this, we've been in Galus for over 2,000 years, the hardest Galus. And when we were leaving and our temple was burning and the Jewish people were being taken out in chains on our legs, it was terrible, right? Al Naharos Bavel, like we sat there and we wept. It was a terrible time. So we also know that up in Shamayim, the Avos and the Imahos were weeping. They were weeping, they were begging Hashem, and they all threw their hat into the ring. Abraham said, for 100 years, I waited until you gave me a son, and I was ready to sacrifice him. They're all, bringing their thing that they did, their sacrifice that they gave Hashem. They're trying, they're fighting, they're pleading. And Yitzchak throws himself into the ring and he says, I said, tie me tighter. The knife was on my neck. I was willing to be sacrificed. He wasn't a child, he was a man. He was totally aware of what was going on. Hashem, I would have died for you. And then Yaakov says, I worked for Lavan for so many years. And everyone had their struggles. Everyone overcame. Moshe, our loyal shepherd, he says, Hashem, I led the Jewish people. It was not easy to lead this stubborn Am Kasher Oref. I led them for 40 years. I didn't even get into the land of Israel. I stood outside. I couldn't even make it in, and I was b'shalom with that. I was okay with that. I did my part. Hashem, please listen to me. They're all fighting. They're all giving their piece. And Bas calls out and says, it has been decreed by me. Hashem is talking. It's been decreed. This is happening. This is very, very tragic moment for Klal Yisrael. And they sit and they weep. They're weeping in Shamayim. They're weeping by the rivers of Bavel. It's the saddest moment. And then we have Rachel Imenu, Mama Rachel. She comes in and she says, I suppressed my desire. And I had pity on my sister so that she would not be shamed. And I gave her the signs and I wasn't jealous of her. She says, if God, I'm flesh and blood, I'm just a human being. If I'm not jealous of others that cause me pain, how could you, O merciful one, be jealous of idols in which there is no reality? And Hashem is aroused by this. And Hashem says, for your sake, Rachel, I will return Israel to their place. Because of you, Vishavu banim legvulam. We're still waiting, we're still davening, we're still hoping, we're yearning for this. We will never stop pleading with Hashem. But it's our Mama Rachel and it's the women that have come before us that have overcome tremendous hardship. They are our mothers. This is what we have in our Jewish DNA. This is the essence of who we are. The ability to be in our Jewish homes, with wherever we are in the world, and this is probably women coming from all different parts of the world. I'm here in Chicago, many of you are in Israel, but I'm assuming this is many countries and many places. And we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, but we have our Mishkan Ma'at, and we had that first. Sarah Imenu was the original Mishkan. She was the original Jewish home. Then we went to a temple. Now we don't have a temple. It's always been the Jewish home that will always last forevermore. That's what we're okay. We're okay wherever we are. We're okay. We have our emunah, we have our faith, We have our prayer, we have the power of our tears, and we have the power that we have within our Jewish DNA. It says that when the temple was destroyed, the gates of prayer were closed and all looked hopeless. However, the gates of tears remained open. That's the Gemara in Brachos. And it's the power of the Jewish woman that have that ability to cry, to plead, to daven, and then it's open. It's wide open for us. That's what we have. That's all we have, and that's all we need to get through this long, hard galus. We have the strength of incredible women that have come before us, and we could be very proud that they are our mothers. And wherever we find ourselves in that first original quote, whether you're waiting, when you're on this side and that side, and we look at our situations and our families and we say, Hashem, what am I doing wrong? Why is it not happening for me? I'm still yearning for this Yeshua, for this Nechama, for this child to find their way. It's okay. Just be right there. Be right there. That's the most beautiful place to be, right? The most beautiful thing in the world is a broken heart. And we could turn to Hashem with that. And Hashem never turns his daughters away. Thank you, Naomi.
So beautiful, Eve. You're so beautiful. You personify all that. But I have a few questions. So very, very interesting. You bring up Rivka, and I'm going to open it up for people to ask a few questions. You bring up Rivka as I was reading the Parsha yesterday. It's so interesting because the imahot were so human. They were so human, and yet within their humanity, they had Ruach HaKodesh, right? They were the closest things to Hashem. We're in Nister, right? We have had not the revealment of Hashem for thousands of years. They were living in that revealment. And yet their humanity was so unbelievable. But what's so interesting, I'm just going to put somebody on mute. What's so interesting also is that if you look, a Rav said this to me recently, if you look at Rivka, right, like she, and when you read the Parsha, it's a little bit shocking, right, because you think these are the imahot, and the way she did everything from the backside, right, Eve? Like the way that she manipulated to get the bracha for Yaakov.
She needed to do.
Right? The way that she listened, she heard Yaakov speaking, and she knew that Yaakov was going to give that bracha to Esav. And she got so, there's so many questions you can ask because Esav was her son too, right? And yet, and to what degree she went for what she believed in. Right. She actually took his hands and she made him to feel like hairy, right? She took Yaakov and she made him feel hairy in order to deceive Yitzchak to the nth degree. And what's very, very interesting, when I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, you saw the same thing in Avraham, right? Avraham was very upset about Ishmael, right? But ended up giving Yitzchak. And Yitzchak was very upset about Esav and ended up giving Yaakov. And there's so much humanity in this. And there's so much room, which we should look at as women, room in mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Like you would never believe that Yitzchak would not see the differences in Yaakov and Esav. Mm-hmm. And yet you can look at it in so many ways. You can say, well, he loved Esav, no matter what Esav's flaws were. But yet you can ask the question, why was he willing to give Esav the biggest bracha that would have taken Esav to a place that would have been harmful to the world? That's number one. Yeah. Number two, right? Number two, you can ask the question of Rivka's humanity. It must have hurt Esav tremendously what she did.
That she also favored Yaakov. It says it straight out. I mean,
Look at how far she went, Eve.
Right.
Look how far she went. You can look at that and think to yourself, my goodness, if we would act like that as a mother today, just think of what our children would be feeling, right? There's so many questions you can ask.
Right. It even, here's the first I don't have the Chumash in front of me, but in the very first few verses, it says that Hashem says that the older is going to serve the younger. And what I thought was, maybe Rivka didn't even need to do all this. Like, wouldn't it have worked out in the end? I mean, there are a lot of questions, and yet.
Yeah, but then why did? Yeah, but you can ask also the question: why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Why did he make Esav the oldest? If Hashem said, do you know what I'm saying? You're saying that the oldest was going to serve the youngest.
No, that's another question. Who was really the oldest? Because Yaakov, this is all the Midrashim say, that Yaakov was put in the mother's womb first, and that's why his name is Yaakov. Esav was the more aggressive one. He made it through the womb. Yaakov was holding on to his heels.
Interesting.
There's a lot we don't know. But actually, Rebbetzin Yemima, she quotes over here. She says in the beginning, in Bereshis 25:28, it says, "The Rivka ohev es Yaakov." Rivka loves Yaakov. Could you imagine the pain that Esav always knew that his brother was favored? Everyone here, like all the mothers on this line, I mean, this would be a fabulous conversation.
I know.
Do you have a favorite? In fact, this week,
and not just that, growing up in homes. Like,
right.
You can ask all the women on the conversation, how did you fit in, to your family dynamics?
I listened to a class that Lori Palatnik gave this week. She gave it for her mother's shloshim, and she shares the story on it that right before her wedding, she asked her mother, "Mom, come on, you don't really love us all equally. You must have a favorite. We all have different personalities and we're different styles. Like, we're different. Like, you must have a favorite." And the mother said, "I do. You're right." And she said, "Do you know who it is?" And she says, "It's me, right?" And she says, "No, actually." And Lori said that it was like she was walking to her chuppah. She felt like she was just told she was adopted or something. Like, what do you mean? I'm not your favorite. And we all laugh at that. But the greatness is making your kids feel that they're each your favorite, right? But over here, clearly, Rivka did not go to parenting classes. She missed that memo, okay? So Esav is already starting out in a very complex situation, not feeling the love, the complete unconditional love of his mother. Not to say that we feel so bad for Esav. He was terrible. He was doing the 3 cardinal sins.
But you can ask the question. You can ask the question just like we ask the question of our children today. You can ask the question, maybe if he was looked upon differently, would he have acted differently? And even at the end, even though he married those Hiite women, what are they called? The Hiite women? He married the 2 Hiite women, right? So she was very upset about it. And then he went and married Yishmael, right? But he still was thinking about his parents because he felt that they didn't accept him because his mother didn't accept him because of that. But then he went on to marry Yishmael's, Yishmael's daughter or something he went on to marry?
Yeah, Machla.
Right. So, but was he pushed in that direction? You can ask the question. And what's interesting also, and everybody can get into the discussion, what's very interesting too, that you can ask the question, is Yitzchak. Yitzchak was chosen over Yishmael. Yitzchak knew good from bad. Yitzchak actually saw his own mother do that, right? And yet he was going to do the opposite. Right? Like, think about it. He was going to do the opposite.
Right.
Yep. Was it, there's so much, it just comes to life in a very, very different way. The concepts of I think that we are a generation that very much was striving, Eve, we don't see, better. We were striving to, like, you hear these seminary girls come back, I want to be like Sari Menu. And what really, when you delve into this, you see the humanity. Look what Sarah did, right? Like, think about it. Look what Sarah did. Look what Rivka did, right? Look at even like the how Leah knew Rachel loved Yaakov so much, right? But
right.
she wanted it. She wanted.
Yeah. But something that I love is that the mistakes are not whitewashed. There's clearly mistakes made every step of the way. I mean, they're such imperfect beings, all of us. And it doesn't put them on a pedestal.
Right.
We can't achieve greatness. The fact that they all come through complex family situations, it gives us hope that we also could fix ourselves and we could also achieve greatness in our lives. And none of it is whitewashed, right? In fact, over here, Rebbetzin Yemima, she says that the blessing that we give a boy at his bris, we say the words, Kayem et hayeled hazel la'aviv uve'le'imo. We say, Hashem, make this child feel he exists in the eyes of his parents. We keep fixing. We're just doing tikkun. Ever since Chava, ever since that first chait, we are fixing and fixing every little bit of mistake. There was mistake in their parenting. I mean, soon we're going to sibling rivalry with Yosef and the brothers and favoritism. And there's so much of this. Right? We learn from the good and we learn from the bad, and we're not whitewashing any of it.
But what's interesting, what's very, very interesting is, a lot of the Torah that's coming out now, Eve, is really the Torah of looking at yourself, that we are the generation that Hashem is really like. I listened to another shiur, I know that I always espouse Rebbetzin Tukachinsky because I'm like one of her, and she started again. And I'm not near to Israel, I'm in America, so I had to listen to the first class on recording. And we are really the generation that Hashem is like shaking the rope, but not shaking the rope. Judith wants to ask something, not shaking the rope because he's judging or because more of the Torah that's coming out. And that's a really good question that we should ask ourselves about the imahot, is really that when we heal, we've really been in Galus so long. When we heal and we can heal the essence and come more to our essence, then all those things shine, right? It's like, she said something so interesting when I was listening to the class. She said, people have to get over this. We're going through things because punishment, or we're going through things because Hashem wants to show us that he is with us in all these different places. He's with us, and he wants us to really become who we're meant to be. And he's with us in those places in order for us to really heal. The question you can ask yourself is, the imahot really had their essence. So how they had much more of their essence than we have. So you know what? There's a lot of things it's showing us. It's a lot of things that we don't understand and we interpret. And maybe it's just a lot more chill than we think, and much more accepting than we think, and much more loving than we think. And maybe it's not that hardship that we think. Maybe it's just more like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if you think about it, Yitzchak, he had lost his eyesight, right? He was missing that sense. He couldn't see, who is this child in front of me? Right. But the fact that they put the fur on his arms, and it says, perhaps my father will feel me. Okay, that sense of touching, because he was used to his father's embrace. They were loving parents. They tried their best. So we have that sense, and then we have the Yitzchak saying Hakol Kol Yaakov. It's the voice of Jacob. Like, he was listening. He was using his hearing, and then we have him tasting the food. Like, bring me the food. He was in mourning for his father, for Abraham, right? So he was eating the round food, like symbolic of moving on. And what was the other sense? What's the fourth sense that he had? So we have the
feel,
and then the smell, right? As he came close,
he smelled him, right?
He smelled him. And even though he used all the senses that he had, he still made that mistake.
Right.
He still mistook his son, his oldest, for his youngest.
Right.
It just shows that we can't. The end result is not always
right. Like, the end result is in Hashem's hands. It shows that too.
Like, what's the quote is, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It's not upon you to finish the task, but you're not exempt from trying. you see they're trying, they're overcoming. Are there
Right.
mistakes? Yes. Do we make mistakes? Yes. But are we supposed to blame ourselves for the
No,
outcome or
no,
children?
that's all Yetzirah.
Hashem, it's you. It's you.
Right.
And I mean, I find a lot of comfort in these stories because it makes me feel
Right.
so not like such a mess up as a
Chas
woman,
v'shalom.
mother, as a daughter, as a sister, as a friend. I mean, we're trying. Like
Right.
if we're in the game, it's not about the end result. It's about the journey, and the
Right.
journey is growth.
Right.
And
The journey is trying, is our ratzon, is really just trying. It's our ratzon. And
yeah,
that's what it is. And like, it's exactly that. Like,
yeah,
a Rav once said to me that, and I always, when you daven well, it's Hashem. And when you don't daven well, it's Hashem.
mm,
It's all Hashem. So therefore, it's the same response.
yeah,
You always have the same response.
yeah,
And that's the same thing with a learner, right? I always say a good learner is Hashem, and a learner who can't learn is Hashem. So it's the same response. We have to look at it the same way,
yeah, yeah.
right? I'm going to open it up. Judith, go ahead. Judith, your
Yes.
hand's up.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. So we're talking about Rivka. So she was barren for 20 years, and Hashem made her barren because her family blessed her, and yeah, I guess they didn't want to say, "Oh, we blessed you," and that's why you had kids right away. So she was barren for 20 years. Some say that Nishmat Kol Chai they composed, Yitzhak composed Nishmat Kol Chai when they were davening, him in one corner and she in another corner. I don't know, how to let it. But, and then it says also that Hashem accepted Yitzhak's tefillah because he was tzaddik ben tzaddik, but didn't accept Rivka's tefillah because she was tzaddiket, but where she was coming from. So that's also kind of interesting to me that, Hashem didn't accept her tefillah. And then because she complained, because of the pain that she had and all that, and she went to Shem Ba'ever, and whatever. And so Hashem punished her because all the 12 tribes were supposed to come from her. But because she complained, Hashem said, I'm very roughly, saying this. Many, many, many midrashim on this, of course, that she didn't. That was, and that they also say that
Let's
Esav
not use the word punishment.
destroyed her womb. And that's why didn't want to let Yaakov come out. That's why Yaakov held on, to his heel, and then he came out. So that's always, I'm always wondering, such punishment,
Don't use the word punishment.
So that's basically kind of my question.
Go ahead, Eve.
Boy, yeah, no, I'm not really sure how to answer your question. Yeah, you're right. I don't like the word punishment because
either do I.
I don't know. She's doing the best that she could do.
I think she was a different thing. You know what I mean? I don't think we can look at it as punishment. I think that her neshama came to the world for very specific reasons.
Right.
And I don't know. You can say that about the whole Torah.
You're saying that she doesn't have the zechut avot, like she doesn't have like the help of her father being a great person to help her, to give her what she needed. Listen.
Right.
Rus, David HaMelech comes from, like Hashem made it very clear that you can make it on your own. It's not about where you come from. It's what you do with what you're given.
Right.
If I have just maybe 4 minutes, I'll share a very powerful story. So this story is of a woman that had a great influence in my life. I've never met her. She passed away probably 5 to 10 years ago. She passed away as an elderly lady, probably close to 90 years old. She survived Auschwitz, and she gave birth to her 4th child in Auschwitz. Dr. Mengele, Yimach Shemo, he shocked the baby out of her. He experimented on her. That baby did not survive. But she did survive through miracles and miracles and miracles. before the Holocaust, in the years leading up, she just kept doing what she needed to do. She was the only woman in her town that was using the mikveh, that was still keeping Taras HaMishpacha, that was still having children. It was the Rav actually pulled her over and said, like, maybe speak to the other women. What's like, it was a terrible time. So no one was thinking to have children. And this woman was just staying in her lane, doing what she needed to do. She always said, Hashem is in charge. I'm not, responsible for what's going to be. I don't know, but Hashem is here and Hashem is in charge. Anyway, she is the mother of Rav Israel Tauber and the grandmother of Rebbetzin Yitzhi Neustadt. If anyone here has learned from Rebbetzin Neustadt, she was a force in my life when I was a young bride living in Israel. I used to study with her every week. And I remember listening to this story and being blown away. Like, she didn't have any cheshbonos. She didn't have any calculations. She said Hashem is in charge. And I wouldn't have children? Like, we believe that you have a child is for eternity. What a blessing it is. If there's this world, there's the next world. That's how we believe as Jews. Like, if the Nazis are gonna kill my babies, like, they're gonna live forever and ever in eternity. And she lived a beautiful, long life. She had 12 children. From her, there are thousands of descendants, thousands. And each one is a light in the world, in Belgium and here and there, like Rabbanim, Dayanim, like just their family has made the greatest impact on the Jewish world, because one woman didn't go into like hashbonos of like, I'm not in control. She just said Hashem is in control. And I always love this story just because it just reminds me, like, none of us have any control other than doing our best efforts. Like, in this complicated situation with Rivka, all Rivka did was know what she needed to do to protect and to bring the light that she felt she needed to bring into the world. That was it. Whether it was through her husband, whether it was through her tefillos, his tefillos, does it even matter? She knew what she needed to do with what she had, and that was it. And that was enough. She knew when it was time to act. She knew when it was time to be courageous. She knew when it was time to do, the things that she did. She knew what she needed to do for her family. She trusts her intuition. She learned that from Sarah Imenu, when Hashem says, Shema B'kola, listen to her voice, because her prophecy is greater than yours, Abraham, right? And she even says, like, I have that. Like, Rivka instructed Yaakov, listen to my voice, right? Bring the young goats, prepare the food. She says the same words, listen to me. Trusting yourself, trusting your gut. We need to realize how powerful we are as Jewish women. We need to realize that what our imahos have left for us is still within us. It's a reality. It's part of who we are, and we're not so far away from it. It's a long time has passed, and they're right over our shoulders every time we light our Shabbos candles. They're right here. They're a reality in our lives. It's not such a long chain going back. So I just feel like stay in your lane. Know what you need to do. Don't look over your shoulder, right? It doesn't matter where the Yeshua is going to come from. It's Hashem. Hashem is running the show. You're just doing your part.
Okay, Eve, thank you. This was incredible. Really amazing. Thanks, Eve.
What a way to start the Chodesh. Thank you.
Right. No, what a way to start the Chodesh. Thank you so much. Should be a beautiful mamishdik, miraculous Chodesh of Geula. That's all we need is Geula. Right? So Bezrat Hashem. Okay, we're going to finish off.
Yeah.
Is Ruti on to say this? Please stay just for 2 minutes while we say the tefillah for our precious soldiers.
Yes, I'm ready. Okay.